to the show where you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show. If you don't know, it's part of the show. Didn't they teach you to reach for the stars while opening up the bars and keeping you chained down with mortgage bills and cars? Vaccines for your arms, kids sounding like supercharged, caffeinated hate-filled scars and rage-quit repertoires. No answers for yards, caught up in emotion that's not even yours. Imposter truths like impeccable retards, lined up for your serving of Gish Gallop and wars. No remedy can save the lost, in love with the yarn. I'm tired of walking into refracted shards, poor science displayed by disgusting bards. Soaked in sin with your dupe is delight for a new hand of cards. Been so long, seems like for love I'm just too hard, I'm just too hard. I said, welcome to the show where you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show. If you don't know, you don't know. Intoxicated 8 makes you believe you're spinning in space while you have no shame or grace. It's a disdainful state I used to contemplate, how to save myself from my own self-hate. Wonder why I was even made with a dreadful fate, forced to try and awake with a full plate. No one to help me stay awake or educate. I've had to liberate and fight through hidden gates. But my brother, heaven could never be late, and rockets don't work in space. It's all fake, the show is on Mars. It's a joke, but you're too far gone, it won't be long. Fepe's beak is strong. We have our song and we march along like streams of knowledge leading to God's holy pond, and lives of truth that hits the bong and sings the song, turns mankind from the wrong. We come in peace with a holy gown and all of us wearing our holy crowns. So the earth is flat and we probably just won't get along, just to go along. I said, welcome to the show where you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show. If you don't know, you don't know.
Welcome back to another exciting adventure of Red Hen Radio. I'm your host, Travis Finley. In this episode, we wrap up our discussion with Jason Lindgren that we had last week, and just want to give you a heads up as I continue to try to publish some of the interactions that I've had with correspondences concerning traffic citations and court appearances. I will continue to try to crank those out, and in the next week or two, we should have our first installment of my interview with Max Egan. So I look forward to that and hope you do too. Here's Jason.
They have to tell us something so that they have this loophole that gives them plausible deniability or whatever. That's just all bullshit. It's just all a lie. Just do it. You know what I mean? If you're gonna make us slaves, just make us slaves. Just enslave us. Don't give all these loopholes and caveats to make us think that we're free. I mean, because you don't get anything out of it. I mean, it's just like, unless it's less work, I suppose it's less work. We have to lie to them. Well, why don't you just lie? Just outright lie. It's like, okay, how about this? It's like the judge that I was in trial for 2 days ago. You know, I argued, you have no evidence this code applies to me. And he said, the code applies to you because it applies to you. He just ipso facto made a declaration. Yes, it does. That's what you should do. Just make a declaration. This is the way it is. We're just going to take money from you. I don't have to tell you. I don't have to make you feel like you're registering your car with the state so that in case your car gets lost, we know what it is, we can find it, la da 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 da. No. You're just stealing my money. And yeah, I mean, just steal my money. You know, just steal my money. Anyway, that's just,
I know, I totally understand where you're coming from. We could talk about that too, about what these statutes apply to and what they don't apply to. That's a totally different story.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's keep our relationship open in that sense. So let's just stick to the cult of Saturn, because again, in your mind, what are its origins and its purpose? Like, what was it for?
Well, again, that's coming a lot from mythology. I can't prove to you where it did or didn't come from, but there seems to be a lot of ties with things that carried through the centuries. They always called them the death cults, Saturn being time or the great destructor, and there's a lot of synonyms that seem to go along with Saturn as well, like Baal. I'm sure people have heard of that. That ties in with Bohemian Grove. How about Set from ancient Egypt? Set, Satan, all of these things, they all seem to be, I'm not going to say completely and utterly interchangeable, but they all definitely seem to be similar to each other. And what the Nazis were worshiping, how about 322 of the Skull and Bones? These are all death cults. If you notice, the elite have this obsession with death, and I think that ties directly in with the modern transhumanist movement, because what do they want? They want to transcend death. They want to be immortal. They want to turn themselves into these god-machine things, whatever they really think is going to happen, which, as far as I know, is they think they're going to be able to merge with this technology, especially this AI technology, which seems very, very Luciferian to me, and perhaps that's the god that they think they're going to touch. I don't really know exactly, but we see the signs of all these things everywhere. All you got to do is look at major corporations' logos and things like that, and they use Saturn stuff everywhere. Yeah. And this is all total 101 stuff. You can find this stuff anywhere. All you got to do is go look at some YouTube videos on corporate logos, and you'll see Saturn crap everywhere. So there seems to be some real validity to Mazda, Nike's a good one. I mean, I could do it right now. Internet Explorer. There's tons of it out there. I don't need to lecture anyone on that, but go find it and watch it, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Okay, so let me interject, because I'm going to interject as a Christian, and what we do when we talk to our tradition and our people and say, look, you're going to come across alternative religions that existed back in the beginning of Israel's day. And so it's like the way that we discuss it is, take for instance the flood of Noah, right? So if you're a kid and you hear about Noah's flood all your life in Sunday school, you don't know anything about Gilgamesh. Nothing. You don't know anything about that until you get into high school maybe, and then even then you might not be able to make the connection, and then you go to college and they're like, yeah, you know, there was an ancient flood story out there besides Noah, you know, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. But the question again becomes the origin, the beginning, where was the primary event? And so because there was, let's say for instance, an event that both Gilgamesh and Noah are referring to, the way that where I'm at right now is the author of Genesis, in telling the story of Noah, is referring to an historical event that he's calling a flood, but his story has nothing to do with that original story, that original event. He's simply using it as an analogy to make a point he's making. So it's an allusion. He's alluding to, like if I were to say to you, just click your heels together. I just made an allusion to Dorothy, right? And so that allusion ultimately has nothing to do with the whole story of The Wizard of Oz. I just want you to get the point that I was trying to make. So when we're talking about the gods of Egypt and the gods of Babylon, we know that there were rival stories out there. But what we're, as Christians, asserting is that those stories are all trickle-down effects of the one true story. So the cult of Saturn or the cult of Egypt or Babylon or whatever you want, they all have this idea, and you touched on it, this idea of transcendence, this idea of transfiguration. Well, that's what Christianity is. Christianity is a cult of transfiguration. And what our story is, and you're probably not going to get this from your typical person on the street. They're not going to say it the way I'm going to say it, but I've said it in my podcast, Rethinking Revelation, enough. But the way that the Christian cult, I don't have a problem using that word, culture, right? Culture. It's paradigm. It's a construct. It's a construct. It's a paradigm. It's a system. The Christian system is that in order for us to escape death, and not escape it in terms of avoid it, but make it through to the other side, the New Testament word for resurrection, which is Latin, the New Testament word in the Greek for resurrection is anastasia, or anastasis, which if you break the word down means to stand up again. So the idea of resurrection is, after you lie down in death, how do you stand up again? And that's the story of Christ. The story is that God comes down and unites humanity to himself in the incarnation, goes through death, comes out of death as the first one who is resurrected, who stands up, and then makes humanity's transfiguration possible. So all of the cults that we're talking about have that storyline to a certain degree and nuance to a certain degree. If we're talking about how do we escape death, how do we transfigure, how do we transmort, we don't do anything as Christians except for participate in what someone else has done for us, because the way that it's been said and the way that I say it is that in order for humanity to be transfigured and transformed into divinity, divinity first had to become human. You couldn't do it without the incarnation. It was impossible. It was never possible. But that was the story of all of those religions. There is coming an event. There is coming an age, a time where this is going to be possible. And the only reason why it is, according to the Christian cult, is because God first became man. If God never did that, there would be no standing up after death.
You used an interesting term a minute ago, and that is transfiguration, which sounds very alchemical to me.
Right.
So your implication is that Christianity is having an alchemical process on the human spirit of transforming that person, or transmuting, might be a better word, to a higher elevation, which is what true alchemy is. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and that's why when I was listening to you guys for the first time, my mind was blown because I had already had those thoughts about Christianity, and then you and Crow were talking about alchemy, and I was just sitting there thinking, this totally makes sense. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't know everything about it, but man, this is really fascinating. You know what I mean?
Well, it's all about raising your own spiritual self to a higher place, I guess is the easiest way to put it. And most of the better religions that have existed, that is the goal. Christianity, I think, just anthropomorphizes a lot of these concepts. You have to have this particular figure doing a lot of it and pointing the way and all that, but I just don't think that's necessary. I think you could do it on your own.
Right, and that was where my conversation with Crow went in my interview with him, because I pointed that out, and that was the distinction he made as well. But that is the narrative in Christianity. I mean, the narrative in Christianity is we cannot save ourselves. So hold on real quick. I'm getting a call, Jason. I need to take it. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Are you back?
I am here.
Yeah. That was the police department.
Joy.
I went in to demand my property. They stole my phone from my arrest on Saturday. And I went in there and said, I have plans to file lawsuits against the officers involved in my kidnapping and imprisonment for 9 hours. And I'm making you an offer right now that you can go and get my phone and return it to me, and I will reduce the amount of damages. But if you refuse my offer, it's off the table. So the answer is either yes or no. And he said no. I said, okay, thank you.
Yeah, they think that they've got all the control, man. That's just the way it is.
Big freaking headache, man. Just leave me alone.
Oh, no. Once they got you, they got you.
No, I mean, just leave me alone altogether. Let me drive unencumbered. Let me travel unencumbered. Leave me alone. I didn't bother you. What do I have to do with you?
That's not how the system works, buddy.
Ugh. Anyway. Well, we've kind of been all over the place. But I still don't feel like it's like the mud flood stuff. I still don't get the whole mud flood argument. So I'm
not. Yeah, I'm not going to speak for Crow, but he and I have been discussing it. We don't think there's enough there.
But what my point was is I still don't get the whole Saturn thing. I'm just like, whatever. It's just a religious thing that, it seems to be perpetuating and being a societal, I don't even know. Because it's like it doesn't matter to us. You know what I mean? Oh, you're driving a Saturn car. Don't you know what Saturn means? Like, whatever. I'm just driving a car, dude. But no, for the elite, it really means something. That whole word spell stuff. Like, do you believe how many people we have driving Mazdas? Yeah, but did you see how many people are driving Toyotas? And it's just like, it's like, what does the power do if people are ignorant of the meaning? You know what I mean? It's like the word register. Are we gonna go back to the etymology of the word register? Regis. You know what regis means, right? It means king. So you're signing your child over the king. You're signing it. It's like, okay, so if that's really happening behind the scenes, and that concept actually creates a reality that exists, which is a corporate fiction now, but that's still real, it's still operative, it still has a function. But when Mary Jane and Papa Joe leave the hospital with their physical child and they've abandoned the corporate fiction child, that's a real event that happens, but they don't know anything about it. So for them, it has no meaning. They've just simply registered their child with the state as a matter of course so that there's an identification thing. They have no concept that they have now just given the state their child physically and corporate. So that if the state determines that these two parents are unable to raise their child appropriately, the state can come and take the child because the child belongs to the state. Because that's what the birth certificate really is. But that's fraud. And ultimately, that nullifies the whole freaking thing. I mean, to me, it's so simple. I could just walk into court right now and say, this whole fucking world is fraudulent, so fuck you. I'm walking out. Leave me alone.
Well, you are correct to a degree. This is not easy stuff to deal with. Once you're in the system, they own you. Let's put it that way. But people like some of the work we've been doing and some of the folks we've spoken to, and there's plenty of others, we're trying to pull that apart and figure out, well, how do we get out of the system? And just like they did to you, because of the licensing statutes and all that, that applies to your straw man, but you're in the straw man. There's nothing you can do about that. Unless you want to get out of the system.
Okay, except for the fact that when I interviewed Max Egan, I said, okay, look, Max, is it this simple? When Neo died and Trinity kissed him and he came back to life, he stood up and he called bullshit on the system.
Right.
He put up his hand and he said, I'm done. I'm out. I said to Max, is it that simple? And that's what Crow said in that song that System protested his sampling. You know, one of the things that Crow called for his audience, he said, someone has to stand up and say no to the magistrate. So that's my point is that's how simple it is. I'm like, I'm done. This is fraudulent. I'm out. I'm out. See ya.
Yes. Here's the thing. People have gotten out of the system. I've spoken to people who have done it. Do you know what happens when you do that, though? First of all, you'll never be free of the police officer who wants to just be annoying. That as far as they're concerned, this stuff doesn't exist. This is nothing to them. This is because the system is just the way it is.
You've got the agent
and you will obey.
Still running around and still functioning within the system. Yeah. Okay.
But as far as the paperwork is concerned, the only way, and we've had discussions with this. I believe I brought this up to Clint Richardson, whom I very much like. But here's the thing: if you remove yourself from the system, that means how are you going to get? Let's say you need a rent. What if you want a mortgage? What if you want a credit card? What if you want a bank account? What if you want to do anything?
Right. No.
If you remove yourself from the system, you are technically dead.
No, I'm talking about walking away from it all, man. Just, you know.
You go live in the middle of the woods?
Yeah.
Well, guess
Leave
what?
me alone.
You might get away with it for a little while, but all land is claimed and owned by the government, which ties back again to the royalty.
But that's fraudulent. What happened in 1933 was fraudulent. The American people didn't know what was happening. They didn't know what was going on. They were lied to. It's all fraud. That's what I'm saying. If we listen to a podcast and the person in the podcast describes what FDR did back in 1933, and it's that simple of saying, look, this is fraud. But why hasn't someone called bullshit in this arena and just completely blown the whole system and said, look, the whole system is fraudulent. Everybody just walk away from this. Take the license plates off your cars. Everybody in this whole neighborhood. Let's just start here and whatever. But that's the whole point, right? If I defraud you in an agreement with you, that there's no problem with you getting out of that contract. And so that's basically the same thing. And so the whole thing with land, the whole thing with gold or whatever, it's like, yeah, this whole thing is fraudulent. So I don't know. To me, I know that it's fraudulent. I know that it's not that simple because the people want to make you go through the system and file the paperwork and blah. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. It's all fraudulent. This is just all I don't know, man. Anyway.
Well, it is fraudulent, but are you going to get all 300 and whatever we're up to now, 325 million-ish Americans to be like, nope, I'm done? If that happened, you absolutely would see change. But in those hundreds of millions are the police officers and the military and all the authority figures that think they know what they're talking about, when in fact they don't whatsoever. But, yes, if everyone pitched in at once and did it, you'd see change immediately. Do you think that's going to happen?
No, I get it. But here's, so the reason why I'm speaking the way that I'm speaking is because I've listened to stuff for the past year. So whatever I'm saying to you right now is hopefully going to synchronize with whatever else somebody else who's hearing me, and whoever else hears this and he passes that on to somebody else and whatever. But, you know, so that's the whole thing for me though, is that when you think about the point that you just brought up with the military and the police, that is that they are simply code enforcers by force. And it's like, I mean, it's almost...
I call it a self-governing system. How does that sound?
Say that again?
I call it a self-governing system because the pawns in the system will beat each other over the head with billy clubs for the system.
Right. Isn't that what's that called? There's a term for people who defend the system.
Status?
No. I think it starts with an M, but it's escaping me right now.
I was thinking of the Stockholm Syndrome.
But yeah, I get it. It's just... Yeah, it's just frustrating. It's empowering on the one hand because it's motivation to accomplish a task. It's a challenge. It's a mountain. It's like, I'm never going to run a 5K. I do not want to run a 5K. But I want to fight this fight. This fight is a fight that I want to... this is my 5K.
Right. And while I don't think we'll ever get everyone on board, this is why I always say change starts at the local level. You're never going to get, no matter how honest somebody might be, you're never going to say get control of the presidency. All that stuff is so bought and paid for and controlled at the top, from the top down.
Right.
It's never going to happen. That's not the way you do things.
Right.
What you have to do is start on your local level and try and work your way up if indeed you want to change something. And that's in the system that we're in now. And don't forget, this system is a self-governing system. So that means that you would have to have everyone in said community on your local level on board for this to make anything change. And then, of course, you're still going to have to deal with the state and then the feds. So it's an uphill battle.
But the only reason you have to deal with the state and the feds is because they want your money. And this is what I don't get. Okay, this is what I don't get. The money is a fraud. Go fucking print your own money. Leave me alone. Go fucking print. Go put some zeros in your bank account. What do you need me for?
Because then it keeps you down. They got to keep you busy, preoccupied.
Right? I mean, I was telling my friend, I'm like, your money in your bank account means absolutely nothing. There is no money. You don't have any money. It's a digit.
It's a debt instrument. It's not.
And you could have more if you added a zero. You could have more if you added a comma and a zero. It's not real. They could do that. The bank could simply go into your account, add a comma and a zero, and you would have more money, and it wouldn't hurt anybody because it's not real.
Well, you can't do that because they govern the system, and if everybody did that, you'd have rampant inflation worse than we already do very, very quickly.
Well, I know that is the stated result. I don't believe that has to be the absolute consequence. It's because the whole system is fraudulent. Inflation is fraudulent. It's just a part of the scheme itself. So all you have to do is modify everything at the same time. It's all fake. Whether or not you make the dollar bill worth a penny or whether or not you make it worth $100. The whole thing is a slide scale, including inflation. It's just all, inflation is bullshit too. Oh, well, if we have people printing their own money, that's going to be a surplus of cash, and then it's going to change. No, it's not. No, it's not. Like, say for instance, I print in my basement. I've got a printing machine, and I print myself $1 million, right? And no one knows about it, and it's all on the up. My counterfeiting is precise and pristine, and it fools everybody. And I flood the system with an extra $1 million. That's not going to change anything. Nothing.
No, but 325 million people doing so over and over and over again over time would.
I don't think so. I understand what you're saying.
Somebody has to do the labor.
Okay, how about this? How about this?
Control mechanism works.
Well, how about this, Jason, though? Let's say 350 people are doing that and no one knows it but those 350 people. So they've got in their basement a stack of money that when they don't have bank accounts or whatever, they just go downstairs and get out a couple of 20s when they go to the store, and they do that, 350 of them or 3,500 of them, and no one knows that they're doing it. It's not going to change the economy. It's not.
Not on that small scale.
Oh, okay.
I agree.
Right. Well, now take it to 350,000. Take it to 3,500,000. If no one knows that all 3,500,000 people are printing their own money and they just simply go to the store and say, here's a 20, it's not going to change anything. It's not. Who's going to know?
I see where you come from.
Yeah, who's going to know that all of a sudden we have an extra 350 million 20s in the system, and now all of a sudden it's inflation crash. No, it's not going to happen. The only reason why inflation is going to change is because they control it, and then they tell you, just like this whole government shutdown bullshit. It's like, on the small scale. So what's happened? I mean, I said this to my friend. So government shut down, right? Yeah. So are we falling? Is our world coming apart? Is our world falling apart? Do we actually need them? But that whole construct, there are people that are influenced by that. Oh no, what are we going to do? And so that you do have control over a certain amount of people, but that's all it is. It's a show. It's a game.
Right.
It's a system.
Well, Neo, it seems like you're getting the hang of this.
Ay. I know, totally, and it's like Cypher. It's like I kind of just want to eat a filet mignon, even though I know it. I just want to go back. I just don't want to know this. I don't want to know this.
Right. And a lot of people feel that way, and a lot of people don't want to wake up in the first place because their lives are decent enough. And I've said this before. If you make a decent amount of money, let's say like a couple, even $100,000 a year, your life is probably going to be comfortable enough that you're not even going to challenge most things. You're not going to care unless, on the off chance, the system fights you, like say with taxes or something like that. Then you might wake up. But for the most part, if you're living comfortably, and I'm thinking of people that I know very close to me even, there's no reason for them to challenge it. And they're not going to care to challenge it.
Well, yeah, you're right. If you make a couple $100,000 and you have to pay $1,000 a year for the right to travel, you're like, whatever. But it's still the principle. They're stealing money from you. They're extorting money from you. Yeah, I
not
don't really
in a sadist mind. That's how the system works. That's not how sadists think. That is not how a sadist thinks, I'm telling you.
What do you mean?
That's not how a person who's bought into the system thinks. They're like, well, of course I have to pay taxes. The government has to run. That's not, I'm just telling you, that's not how they think.
Oh, no, right. Yeah. I get you. No, I've had this conversation with a friend of mine when she picked me up from my incarceration, my kidnapping and false imprisonment. And we had a 3-hour conversation afterwards, and she's like, well, how would the government run? I'm like, before the Fed in 1913, they had public roads. They had public schools. They didn't have income tax. Don't you know that? Don't you know that narrative? Now the narrative that you're in is telling you that it can't happen unless these things are out. No, it's not true. Stand up with me. Let's stand up together and walk away. Take the plates off your car. Let's do this.
Well, before the Fed, the Federal Reserve and all that, yeah, roads and things existed because the income tax does not go to pay for infrastructure as far as I know, at least as far as I've been able to nail it down. That goes to pay the debt on the Federal Reserve. And I'm making a generalization because I think it does get split up in certain ways. But generally speaking, roads and schools and things got built because before the income tax and the Federal Reserve and all of that crap in 1913, your other taxes went to that, your state, your local, all that. Those go to those kinds of things.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got a system that gets created in 1913, and so you say, in order for us, the elite who are creating this system, in order for us to maintain this system, we're going to tax for the maintenance of this. But the problem that we should have said right at the beginning is, well, it's not that we did it, that's the whole creature from Jekyll Island, right? It's like, well, okay, so here it is. How about this, right? If it's true, and I've only listened to, where do you get your information off the YouTube? Is that where you're getting your information? Yeah, it actually is. So, if we think about the Revolutionary War, right? No taxation without representation. King George is taxing us. How much is he taxing us? 3%. Oh, 3%. That's horrible. But if you want to go to war, we're going to have to charge you 30% because we have to fund the war. So it's going to be at 20. Yeah, I'd be like, yeah, no, let's not go to war. I'll live with the 3%. I'm not going to send my child or my dad or my husband off to die to pay 30% instead of 3%. No, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, there's a lot more to the Revolutionary War than that, too. And I don't think the Revolutionary War was quite as won as people think that. I don't think it went down the way people think it went down.
Yeah, well, that's the whole kit and caboodle where that's why I created this podcast, to have these discussions and filter this information in and whatever. Yeah. I just don't have time, man. I just don't have time to study this shit.
Well, that's why you speak to people all over the place that you feel you can trust who are doing legitimate research so that you can get this section from this person and this section from that person and that kind of thing.
Speaking of which, I had an hour and 50-minute discussion with Alphonse yesterday.
Oh, I bet you that was nice and interesting.
It was absolutely delightful. The guy is awesome. He's such a character. Dude. Oh yeah. I recorded our conversation and I'm gonna publish it on this channel, and cool. It's gonna be interesting. I think it's very, very empowering. In the same way, after I heard his interview with him on your show last year when I first was driving around without my registration, I took a lot of what that show did and I went out into the system, and even though I didn't win and my property was stolen from me and impounded, I still had empowerment to stand up for myself. And
I don't know. There's just something about that. It's like even if you get your ass kicked by the bully, I still stood up.
Right.
I didn't bend over. And after talking to him yesterday, or even while talking to him, it was that same kind of existential jolt of life and invigoration of the idea of standing up for yourself. So it was very empowering, and I'm excited to see what happens, even if it goes sideways. All right, what time is it? Because I've got to go to work at 1:30 my time, which is an hour away. So I've got to wrap this up. But actually, I do want to give you an opportunity to talk about shooting the moon. So take as much time as you right now. Let's put that out there.
Right. We are doing a film called Shoot the Moon. That's Crow and myself from Crow777radio.com. That's our podcast website, and we do a podcast every week, as a lot of folks probably know. But we decided about a year-ish ago to do a film with all of the 4 years' worth of material that he shot, all of his object clips, the lunar waves, all the interesting things he has done. Well, people haven't seen all this stuff, and he's got tons of stuff. So I went and visited him, and I got about 2 terabytes worth of data of all the stuff that he filmed. And I shot some new interviews with some very good quality cameras, and the film has come together really, really amazingly. I'm quite happy with it. But I spent what little resources I had doing all the production, getting the things I need and all that. So as I've been getting this film together, I started looking at the other end of it. What happens once this is done and we're happy with it? Everything looks great, ready to go to show it to people. How do I get it distributed? What do I do? And then all these costs that I never even realized were going to happen started materializing. So to make a long story short, we decided, even though Crow and I are not into this kind of thing, to do a GoFundMe specifically for the film so that we can get DVD and Blu-ray replication done for the folks that have already been asking about that, getting into theaters, film festivals, all these things have cost. Any travel I might have to do, which I'm certain I'm going to have to if I have to do presentations. There's so much. Not to mention the fact that I sunk thousands and thousands of dollars into everything to make a film. So we decided to do a GoFundMe specifically just for the film. And the amount we're going for is $19,600, which probably isn't even enough, but it's a reasonable enough to get us going post-production, post-release. But we need it before the release, which is going to be in the spring. So it's easy enough to find. Just look GoFundMe and Shoot the Moon and Jason Lindgren. All those key terms should bring it up. I have it all search engine optimized or whatever you call it. And it really is very simple, honestly. If 2,000 people just gave $10 one time, then we'd have what we needed. And even I could do that. And I don't have a lot of income. It should be...
Yeah.
Or 4,000 people giving $5. Give up your latte one day. It's things like that. And I've never been one to ask for money, but it's at that point where, like, if I don't do this, we're not going to be able to get it where we want to do. And what it comes down to is this. The entertainment industry is another self-governing industry. You have to get in bed with the goblins to get anywhere, and we don't want to do that. This is all about being able to pay the people we need to pay to get things where we want it. And that's just the end of it. If I need an aggregator to get things licensed, if I need an entertainment lawyer, and all these things that I don't want to do and Crow certainly doesn't want to do, but it might come down to where we need certain things taken care of to get a film out into the mainstream so that I want millions of people to see this, man. So when you think about it in that context, the amount of money we're asking for really isn't that much, because I assure you that just the marketing alone for an actual Hollywood film, they usually spend about half of the production budget, again, just on advertising. So think of it that way. We're talking in the millions.
Yeah, what if, I don't know, what if, and this might be a stupid comment, but like, what if you just like bootleg it and like leak it out somehow and let that be a grassroots, like, you know, I'm just thinking of people passing it along.
It's going to end up that way, I have no doubt. I can't stop people from ripping it and torrenting it and things like that. But I went through a lot of effort, and that's what I'm finishing now, to make this available for the big screen. Like the amount, I'm using professional grade stuff that Hollywood would use for major blockbusters. That's the software I'm using. The detail I'm pulling out of Crow's clips, he's never even seen his stuff look this good. And the interviews I shot and all the hours I put into it, if I just bootleg it, I spent thousands of dollars for nothing, and
there's got to be somebody that $19,000 is like 19 cents, $19.
Yeah, I know people, but they're saying they don't care. I know somebody who could just hand that to me. I know most people who could just be like, oh yeah, here you go. It's just not going to happen.
There's somebody out there. It's going to happen, man. It's going to happen. Somebody's going to hear this. Somebody's going to, you know. We gotta just hope. We gotta just put someone that's running.
Hopefully this reaches those ears, but even doing it with the law of numbers, if a decent amount of people, and goodness gracious, I know that more than 4,000 people listen to our show every week. If 4,000 people gave us a latte, the equivalent of a latte, that's it. We're good. We've got what we need to get going. And that's just the end of it. And what's in this film? New interviews, object clips like you've never seen before. Crow has captured so much stuff. Nobody that we know of, and you can fact check this because I might be wrong, but we've discussed this. As far as we know, no one out there has filmed as much stuff as he has in the 4 years that he did nothing but do his telescope work and the incredible amount of stuff. So this means all the people who are into UFOs and things like that, you want to see this film. All of the truthers in general who just want to challenge the mainstream notion, you want to see this film. Because Crow does discuss things like we do on our podcast every week. This is just a high-quality version, audio-video version of the podcast, blown up but focusing on his object clips. So I think this film's going to be awesome once it's all said and done.
Thank you so much for tuning into Red Hen Radio. I'm your host, Travis Finley. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe, like, share, and hit the bell notification to be kept up to date with Red Hen Radio. If you have any suggestions for future guests or topics, you can email me at redhenradio@gmail.com, and I will do my best to see what I can do about that. Or if you just simply want to comment and interact, you can do that as well. I think I'll be able to handle that a little bit better than scrolling through all of the comments. That would be very tedious, and I don't have the time to do that. Alright, so yeah, that's about it. Keep your ear out for future episodes with Max Egan and continuing discussions with courtroom procedure and all of that good stuff. I am your host, Travis Finley. This is Red Hen Radio. Until next time.
While opening up the bars and keeping you chained down with mortgage bills and cars, vaccines for your arms, kids sounding like supercharged, caffeinated hate-filled scars and rage-quit repertoires, no answers for yards, caught up in emotion that's not even yours, imposter truths like impeccable retards, lined up for your serving of gish galloping wars, no remedy can save the lost, in love with the yarn. I'm tired of walking into refracted shards, poor science displayed by disgusting bards, soaked in sin with your dupe as delight in a new hand of cards. Been so long, seems like for love I'm just too hard, that's it.